McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop, Season 2, Episode 19, The Magician. October 10th, 1921, continued. Dearest diary, you cannot imagine the shock I felt. Here was our answer, perfect, available, immediate. But how twisted, how frightening. Noble knew someone who could kill part of our souls for 24 hours. That was all we needed. We could become temporary night enthusiasts, and we could enter the secret passage, and we could rescue the train car prisoners. But I was scared. Of course I was scared. But how, I said, is it safe? Well, I've done it twice before, Noble said, and my soul came back fine both times. It's not a spell, or something that can go wrong. It's someone's unique magic unusual power. It's an old man who lives in Germany. For a fee, he will use his power on anyone who asks. It's very secretive, and the night enthusiasts have no idea he exists. He removed a portion of my soul twice, once when I first joined the night enthusiasts, and once when they started to get suspicious. They have equipment that knows whether or not someone's soul is whole or not. I passed their test both times, and within 24 hours, my soul returned. How do the night enthusiasts not know about him? I said. Well, he isn't a magic unusual to them, Noble said. He's barely a magic unusual to himself. He thinks he's the only magic person in the world, and he doesn't like being told otherwise. He realized once, a long time ago, that he could help people stop feeling things by simply wishing it for them. He can make people duller, make people care less, and some people will pay, over and over again, to have bits of themselves removed. It only lasts for a day, but they keep coming back. So he thinks he's a magician, I said. Well, technically you're a magician too, Noble said, but yes. He thinks he's something old-fashioned and impossible. He set himself up as some kind of soothsayer, and even if the night enthusiasts did hear about him, they'd consider him some kind of charlatan. He acts like a charlatan, but it works. And he doesn't care who pays him. I shivered. I wondered how it would feel to have part of my soul removed. All right, well, let's go. If you're willing, Noble said. As long as you promise that it comes back, I said. It does, he said. He smiled sadly at me. Before we do this, I said, I have to check. I have to make sure this secret entrance isn't just blocked by a spell. I'm not going all the way to Germany and undergoing a magical surgery for nothing. If the barrier on the secret entrance is a spell, I can break it with a word. But if some magic unusual out there has the power to block doorways based on select criteria, then I suppose we're going to Europe. I suppose, Noble said. But do you really think you should be teleporting back to that area? You mentioned something about a grey beard. Yes, I said. Do you happen to have a large grey beard? Do you know, Noble said, it's surprisingly difficult to get a fake beard, or hair dye, or a wig. Well, I partially stole a wig last time I needed one, I said, but I think you're right. There really isn't time. I'll wrap my head in a towel or something. Noble got up and began to throw things at me. I mean that quite literally. It startled me quite a bit, because he's so quiet and reserved, and then I realized he was trying to make me laugh. He tossed me a muffin from his kitchen, which I caught beautifully, and then he dashed around, grabbing a few more things. He brought me a dark pink silk scarf and tiny grandmother spectacles. I wrapped my hair up in the turban, and looked rather fetching and eccentric, especially once I put on the glasses. With a muffin in my pocket, I teleported back to the secret entrance, and Noble came with me. I didn't teleport right onto the scene in question, simply because I hadn't seen it yet and couldn't. I aimed for the cafe instead, and arrived right outside it. Clearing my throat and walking briskly, I came around behind the cafe. There was a little yard, muddy and grassy. Noble stood there, waiting for me. It's just here, he said. He gestured at a rusty door. It seemed to lead inside an old stone shed. I hurried up to the door, glancing over my shoulder. Already, someone in the cafe was looking quizzically out the window at us. We didn't have much time at all. I think we should have disguised you too, I said to Noble. Noble turned his back to the window, and I reached the threshold of the door. I wish this spell would break, and Noble James and I would be able to pass as we are, I said. I stepped forward and opened the door. It opened easily, and I looked down at mossy stone steps. I strode forward, but an invisible force inside the doorway shoved me back. A tiny curl of paper fluttered down. I stooped and picked the paper up. It said, "Get away, enemy of the night." "So it's not a spell," I said. I turned to Noble. "I can't break it." Behind us, someone shouted in the cafe. I looked over and groaned. Fingers were being pointed at us. They recognized us. "We'd better get to Germany," Noble said. He hurried behind the shed, out of sight, and I hurried after him. No one could see us at the moment. As long as we could teleport before the occupants of the cafe came running out at us, we were all right. Noble rifled around in his pockets, pulled out a snapshot of a cozy German street, and showed it to me. With a location in my mind, we teleported. During the war, we'd been told to think that Germany was somehow evil. But arriving here now, it made me sad. It was war-torn, worse than what I was used to. It made me miserable to think of living on a street like this. It was like it hadn't quite recovered from a wound. A few buildings still lay, gutted, not rebuilt yet. There was trash and filth, like everyone was just too tired to pick it up. At the same time, the street seemed ordinary. As a young woman, I'd thought the Germans must be some kind of troll, not human. They killed and caused needless suffering, and of course it was all their fault. They were the enemy. I expected Germans to have little pointed ears or something, but they didn't. The people walking past Noble and I looked like people, because they were people. I felt like I was in my own city, looking at my people who might start speaking English any second. That surprised me, in a way, that the old enemy was just as human as I was. I turned and looked at Noble. "Now what?" I said. "Through here," Noble said. He pointed at a narrow little building with no door. A brown cloth hung in front of the entrance. We stepped inside and found ourselves in a narrow shop front. It smelled like old glue and dusty wood. A comforting smell. The walls were lined with shelves, and the shelves were mostly bare. No one was behind the desk. Noble stepped up and rang a little silver bell. We waited. Noble glanced at me, his hands in his pockets. "I should warn you," he said. "It doesn't feel very nice." "It hurts to have it removed," I said. "It doesn't feel nice afterwards," Noble said, "when it's gone." At that moment, a frightful-looking little man appeared. We hope you've enjoyed Season 2, Episode 19, The Magician, of McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop. McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop is written and performed by Minerva Sweeney Wren. All rights reserved. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider taking a moment to share it with your friends. A social media share, Facebook tag, or in-person recommendation do more to market this audio drama than anything Minerva Sweeney Wren can do on her own. She relies on you. Visit minervasweeneywren.com to share the story with other people in need of an adventure. McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop will continue with Season 2, Episode 20, The 24-Hour Death.